Welcome to the Suzanne Northrop Show, where the spirit world comes alive.
Hello, everyone. It is a Monday night at the beginning of September, and we're not quite yet in fall. Let's give us a couple sort of weeks here, because I think we're still trying to enjoy what, at least certainly in the Northeast, we're getting wonderful sunny days. You could feel almost a tincture of fall, one would say. And but anyway, so we're here live, so it's not quite yet because the leaves are still green and all of the above. So I know people come sometimes, they ask me these questions. Why is Suzanne so big about the weather? Well, if you read my newsletter that just came out actually yesterday or the day before, you'll understand why I talk about the weather. Because the weather's a lot like life. It changes. You never know from moment to moment. Sometimes it's going to be a hurricane. Sometimes there's a hurricane in our own lives. And sometimes on our own lives, we have to do these beginnings. And I usually use reference to it, particularly for fall, because for many people, psychologically, September is a time of moving or change or making decisions in your life. And part of that has to do with the fact we've been programmed from a very young age. That's when you started school. That's when you started this in your life. So if there's, and if people do certain jobs and get like teaching, for example, they start a whole new thing in September. So it's really kind of like a beginning time. And I kind of thought my guest, my dear soul sister, Dr. Terri Daniels, I had on tonight, because I thought it was kind of appropriate because fall was kind of in beginnings. And one of the things that, for all of you who know me, I've known Terri for like a long time. We used to do the Afterlife Conference together and all kind of other events. And we're welcoming a lot of people coming in tonight. Gail and Joy and Carolyn and, Susan. So it's Beverly. So hello from New York City and hello from wherever you're coming from in here. But anyway, so I kind of thought Terri would be kind of perfect for the fall because it is kind of a beginning time. But one of the things that she's become special at, I don't mind telling you, she's probably at this point, probably top of the line expert of death and grief and everything that surrounds it. But one of the special things that she talks about, which we're going to talk about tonight, is how you can use grief in different ways in your life and how you get from one point to another, which sometimes, a lot of times when people are going through grief, they get stuck and they feel like they've gotten to a point where they can deal with it a lot. And then they have these, what I call these freakouts, or they feel like they're going backwards, or they feel like, oh my God, I've done all this work, and why am I having this experience in my life, or why am I feel like I haven't gone any. So she'll share a lot of that information with you, but that's really, really common. So I kind of thought, we're at the end of summer, we're going into some new beginnings. And for many people, this has been, maybe they lost somebody over the summer. Maybe this is a period of time where the person that they love, their crossing was at this time, or it was a birthday time. It could be anything. And of course, grief, we focus on it pretty much for transitions of life or people that have crossed over. But grief, as we all know, has to do with in your life. So all these can be applied to so many different areas in your life. So I'm really happy to share this. She's a really rocket scientist in her field, I can tell you that. And she's very smart. And not to mention the fact we have a great time when we see each other, although she's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. But I just saw her on the West Coast. We're fortunate that we were able to land in LA together, and we had a great time and really, really caught up. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Dr. Terri Daniel.
Thank you, my friend. You're a rocket scientist too for what you do. So I just want to put that kudo right back at you. And we did have fun in LA. I think that was like exactly a year ago, or maybe it was two.
It was in the spring.
No, it was November. It was my dad's birthday. Oh, yeah, it was exactly last year.
You're right. It was in November. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So there you go. I just slip into
it was in the fall.
It was in the fall. There you go. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Interesting. Fall in most religious traditions actually is considered the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Because it's the harvest.
Right.
And it's, it's also, that's where the ceremonies are happening that we kind of get ready for winter. We sort of close up, and it's the beginning. The only reason that it's kind of ever looks like the end of the year is when the Christian calendar was superimposed on all the indigenous and pagan and natural earth-based
Right.
calendar. And so now we think of it as the end, and January is the beginning, but that's just the Christian calendar. Everybody before that understands.
However, as you well know, the Jewish holidays are coming up, Rosh Hashanah and Yom
Which is
Kippur.
one of the ancient calendars that
Right.
has it as the new year. Exactly.
And for everybody who knows about Yom Kippur, it's basically dedicated to your loved ones that have crossed over. That's what Yom Kippur is all about. So they have the feast in Rosh Hashanah. So that's why I always think it's so interesting is that when you go into September, it's true because we are psychologically prepared for September and for fall because it is a shifting of another season. And it's a season that's obviously winter time, but it's interesting. We do have these very heavy or religious times during that because I know that in New York it's obviously if you live in New York it's an enormous holiday. I mean you literally you get school off. I mean that's how big it is in New York City and probably other parts. I remember some of that in LA too from a friend of mine that lived out there that was Jewish. But in any case, I knew that you would know all these little things, but like I said, there is a psychological thing to September because we are going to be going into another season, which I believe is on the 20th or the 21st. We'll be going to the vernal, not the vernal, the equinox, the fall equinox.
It's the fall equinox, yeah. And what happens emotionally and psychologically is we start to close up. We start to shut down. We start to go within. Mm-hmm. And it's a very spiritual time. And what happens is the days start to get longer, right? We're farther away from the sun. And it's a very deeper mystical time. Right. And it's a time for reflection and meditation. And there's so many rituals around fall and winter. And then the winter solstice is just huge about winter. So what happens in the fall is it starts to get dark. Well, it starts getting darker in the summer solstice, darker.
Yes.
And then in winter solstice, it starts getting lighter. It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, but we love it because all of a sudden it's been really dark. And then, of course, I mean, that's it. But I kind of wanted to ask you a question because this is sort of partially in your genre. I was just recently speaking to somebody who was a writer. And they were saying that it was interesting is that not that they don't write during the summer, but they said that one of the things that they happen to really like about coming into fall and to winter is that it's easier for them to write because the energy and the darkness and it getting lighter, darker earlier really puts them in the zone for writing.
Or maybe they're just inside more at their computer.
Well, whatever it is, I'm just saying. Like sometimes, when it's nice outside, if that's our job or we make part of our living through writing, sometimes you just don't want to be in. When it's true when it's really nice, you want to be sort of outside. So there is a psychological, aspect to it as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. She goes, yeah, because she said that's how she was able to when she said during the pandemic with COVID, but she said because everything was so closed off, it was in some ways it was easier for her when the fall came in the darkness to sort of focus in it on then in the summertime, because of course you want to be outside, and if you couldn't be outside, let's put it this way, you were limited during COVID about where you could be. It's sort of like focused on the elements of that. But you're right. There's a lot of, and then you go into, of course, we all know Halloween or Hallows Eve, which is a whole other level of
ritual,
and all of that stuff. So anyway, so share some of the. So you said there's a lot of rituals in fall. Obviously, we know that. Then we go into Halloween, and then of course at that point you're almost ready to shift into after Halloween is when you start thinking about the winter house. I mean, it's kind of go ricochet after that point.
Well, ritual, I mean, I kind of want to move off the seasonal thing and just kind of go to grief rituals, which of course are forever and all year around. And, my day job is as a hospice grief counselor. And so I am talking to grieving people, as you are, every single day, 7 days a week. That's my job. And so I'm talking to them at every phase of their grieving, from a week after the person dies to 6 months after the person dies. And they're in an acute grieving space most of the time. And so my job and the kind of counseling I do is I do something called solution focused therapy. And that is basically because I'm also a teacher. I teach in the death studies program at Marian University. I'm also a hospice chaplain, and I teach chaplaincy at 2 seminaries. What I'm into is I want to say, here's what you do. I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to make you feel better right now. And it's not about getting over your grief or stopping the pain, because that's not what you do. That's not what you focus. First of all, you never get over your grief. You don't recover. You don't move on. You don't get over it. We don't use that language at all. What you do, I want you all who's listening to just erase that language from your vocabulary. What you do, and this is a language I like to use, if you ever have baked a cake or done any baking from scratch, there is a term called folding in. In a recipe, you stir the flour into the batter, and you fold it in. What you do is you fold the grief into your life, or you integrate it. It folds into who you become, or you find a way, or you find a place to carry it in your reality. You don't push it away. You don't put it on a shelf. This was the old way, the Freudian way, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, before we had theories about continuing bonds, which means you continue your relationship. That's another conversation. Anyway, so I try to give people tools for how
my
to,
area. That's my
and
area.
that is your area. And
Yes.
science actually caught up with that.
Yes.
Is that, and we do
About
have
time.
scientific theories that support this, that the healthy thing to do
Glory, glory,
is
hallelujah.
to continue our relationship versus ending the relationship. So these ritual tools are ways to, 1, continue the relationship, and 2, release the edginess of the pain from your body so that you can live peacefully with it, because you want to make friends with that pain. And most people are like, ew, ow, pain, ick, get away, I don't want it. And that just makes it worse. And so what we want to do is beautify.
And it's also not realistic. It's also not realistic.
It is not realistic, because it's just, it's just going to make it this ugly monster that you hate every time it comes up.
Yeah.
Right. And grieving people will often say, oh, I had a terrible day today. I felt so much pain. I cried, and I just couldn't stop thinking about my loved one. And that's not a terrible day. That's a good day. Yeah. And so what do you do on a day like that? And if any of you guys want to pop a question in there about, that, I can help you with some, like, how do you deal? What do you do with that day where you have that pain? And I have a ton of tools for that, and I'll give you some of them right now. So I learned a lot of this from studying with the shamans who come to the Afterlife Conference, who Suzanne knows very well. Austin Wells is one of them, and Linda Fitch. Those are my 2 shaman teachers who taught me everything about rituals. It looks like there's a comment here. Oh, just a bunch of hellos. Okay. And it's ritual is, I call it occupational therapy for the soul. And, occupational therapy gives you some busy work, gives you something to do with your energy. And it's the same idea. So one of the things the shamans taught me is, when you're having extreme anxiety and you just can't breathe, and it's like the pain is so bad, my child died, I can't stand it, I can't breathe, I can't live, I can't make it from one minute to the next. You need to blow that out of your body. And one way that we can do that is we take a rock. This looks like just a normal rock. Actually, it says Danny on it, because this is a rock that my son Danny painted when he was a little kid. And I'll get to him in a minute. So this is the rock I like to use to demonstrate. A rock has been here for billions of years, literally on Earth. It's very strong. It has seen everything. It can hold a lot of energy. Your little body is just a piece of meat. It can't tolerate very much without breaking and getting sick. So you take that anxiety and you go and you blow it into the rock. You scream into the rock. You cry and scream into the rock. All your energy and your rage, like, why did he have to die? It isn't fair. I'm angry at God. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. And you take that rock and you throw it into a river or you bury it in the earth. And you're basically just getting it out of your body where it sits and rots and makes you sick. And you're putting it into this big, strong thing and getting rid of it. Very simple. You can do that with a piece of grass or a leaf or a flower. And so that's the kind of process where we just metabolize the pain. So grief, I use this analogy a lot too. It's like if you eat a big, heavy meal, you know what it's like when it's just sitting there in your stomach and then you get diarrhea or you get constipation, or something, because it's not metabolizing. It's not going through you in a healthy way. And pain and trauma and sorrow does that too. So these little rituals that we're going to talk about today are a way to help it flush through. You don't have to hold it in there. A lot of people think that their pain is the thing that keeps them connected to the loved one. If I don't feel this pain, I've lost connection to them. But Suzanne will tell you, that's not what they want you to feel. They don't want you to suffer.
That's right. That's right.
Not one of them will ever say, yeah, go ahead.
No. Well, I was just going to say, we don't have to belabor on this, but I just want to give one quick insert here, is that, first of all, I want everybody to know the reason how I met Terri, Dr. Terri Daniels, is that she wrote a book. And somehow she got that book to me. I don't remember how you did that, but somehow
I don't either.
To me, yeah. So obviously you must have sent it to somebody, in my office or whatever it was. And basically it was a book that she wrote after the death of her son. So when Dr. Terri Daniels is talking about this, she's talking about this from her own life's experience, because it was her own life's experience. Because when this happened to her, she was at the place that a lot of you people know, what she's talking about. So moving forward, this is what happened to her. What year was this in, Terri?
Okay, thanks for that. That's a good segue. So let's go there. So it just so happens the reason Suzanne put me on the show today, September 8th, is the 19-year anniversary of my son's death. In my living room right now, I have a little altar with his ashes and a candle. And every year I have all kinds of rituals, but he died 19 years ago today. And, 19 years for some of you may seem like an unimaginably long time for your loved one to be gone. But, time goes by and boom, all of a sudden it's 19 years. You can't believe it. Yes. And so I did write this book in the first year after he died, because I began to channel him quite loudly and strongly. And because of that, it completely redirected my life. Prior to that, I was an advertising copywriter and marketing consultant. Mm-hmm. Here I am 19 years later. I went to college. I never went to college when I was young. I started college at 56 years old. Mm-hmm. I stayed in school for 10 years and I now have a doctorate, and I'm Dr. Terri Daniel, and I'm a hospice grief counselor, and I teach college. And it's all because of him.
Yes.
And he basically became my teacher and my guide and just directed me through this whole thing. Now, he didn't tell me what to do. He didn't push me and say, go to school and do this. He had just inspired me and was kind of sitting there next to me, like, right here's my little dog on this chair here. I don't know if you can see her. It is kind of, I like to have her here because it's symbolic. In fact, right here, that's a picture of my son here, right there. And it's kind of like he's always sitting over my shoulder, very peacefully and gently, just beaming shit at me.
Right.
And that's how it works, Suzanne, right? Right?
Exactly. Yes. And the thing is that, I mean, and then, so anyway, but from that, and then moving forward, Terri started doing these afterlife conferences. And in the process of all that, she, obviously this was her path. Ultimately, in the bigger picture, this was Terri's path. And by, this was obviously, even though this was painful and difficult, it was a gift. And that gift of his loss brought her to a place where now she's sharing this with so many people that need this, because it's like, it's like the person says, well, you have no idea what it is to lose a child unless you've lost a child. Well, Terri knows what it is to lose a child because she's lost a child. I did not lose a child, but I lost my nephew. And this is one of the things that Terri and I, we always share about. I mean, I didn't physically have him, but he was like my kid. So it's all relative to your experiences in your life and where they are. And it was interesting because when he died, people would say to me like, "Oh, now you're on our side," and they didn't mean it cruelly. They just said like, "Oh, now you know what we're going through." So what Terri did, Dr. Terri Daniels, what she did is that she took it to a whole other level, where she went from this life to this other life. and although this process is this process, I am going to say that other life, Terri, that you've done, Dr. Daniels, what you've done is that you've helped so many thousands of people in that process. Now, obviously, I was doing this work before my nephew crossed over. I mean, that's obvious. But what I'm saying to you is that you took this to a whole other level. And as you well know, many people write books particularly when they lose children. A lot of people write books. A lot of people have to share their story. A lot of people want people to know about their son or their daughters, whatever it is. And some, go on to have organizations. There's an organization in Long Island called COPE, and that's because she lost her daughter. It started because a little thing, and it went. So it's like these things happen in our lives, and it's like what you do with them. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be everybody's path, because everybody's path is relevant to them at that time. But there definitely seems to be some kind of a connection, and you would know this better than I would, Dr. Daniels, because of all the people that you've met professionally along the way. I know mostly, obviously, in my genre, I know mostly mediums because that's what I do. Most of the people that I know, so.
Yeah. And I want to say, don't use me as example because I did a lot, but you can carry on the legacy in the smallest ways. Like if your child likes to play baseball, you can go and volunteer for some, a local baseball team to raise money for their uniforms or something.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. It's like you never know what you're going to do, and you can turn around. And if you want, you're right. If there's things you love kids, you still want to be around kids. There's things that you can do to go through that. I mean, I know one of the organizations, they have a camp. They have a camp where kids go to it. Not that they've, that they've lost siblings or they've lost, and it's a whole camp for kids that can be with other kids that they can talk to and that they can relate to. And so there's these little things which I think personally are the big things that help, people on this day by day, week by week, month by month process to get from A to B to C to D down the road. And so, but I'm just, what it did is it changed your life 360 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And there's all, like I said, it's just about carrying on their legacy. Like, for example, right now I'm wearing one of my son's shirts and it's so old, it's falling off of me. I mean, again, he died 19 years ago. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. One of my hospices just tried to text me. Sorry. So yeah, there's a million ways to do that. So that's part of some of the tools that I'm talking about that I can give you guys, and it's, wearing their clothes, carrying on their traditions. If they like to hike in the forest, start hiking in the forest where they used to go. One of the tools, I have a bunch of documents that I'd like to send you. I can attach them here, or I can just send them to Suzanne. Can you do that, Suzanne, and send them out to your list?
Yeah,
What's a good way to do that?
We could certainly do that. I mean, obviously that's certainly something they could just send them to my office, I guess.
All right, I'll send them to your office, and maybe you can just send them, just privately to your whole list, or I can put them in the chat box here or whatever. But I have a wonderful list of like ceremonies and tools and little processes, because somebody here said, please give us some tools. So, and I'll explain to you some of them now. So here's one. So, there used to be, when I first started out, when my book came out, there was a book a woman wrote whose child died. And it was called Down the Cereal Aisle. And I never read the book. All I had to do was see the title, and I knew what was in the book, basically. And it's like, after my son died, I couldn't go to the grocery store. It would just, I couldn't. I would drive my car to the parking lot and then just sit there and cry, because the thought of going in there and going down the cereal aisle and buying Cheerios, was like, it killed me. And so one of the things that I tell my hospice clients now is to get some of those little battery operated tea light candles, the ones that are run by a battery. You just flick the switch on the back and it's a little electric light. Keep a bunch of those in your purse or in your car. And anytime you go someplace that's a painful reminder, like you have to drive by the school where your kid went, or the supermarket, or the park where the dog park because your dog died, or any of those places that are so painful, get your little tea light out, walk over into the grocery store and put that tea light on the shelf right next to the Cheerios and flick it on. Just leave it there. And people will think you're crazy. Who cares? Or the guy who works at the store will still take it down and throw it away. But it doesn't matter, because what you've done is you have put light into that dark space. And you have made a scary place into a holy place. And you're going to walk out of that store smiling and crying tears of joy. And you have transformed symbolically in your heart the meaning of that grocery store. And so I have in my.
So we got to buy a lot of these lights, Tara? Is that what I'm trying to say? We got to buy a whole lot of these lights?
You can buy a bag of 100 on Amazon for $12. I mean, it's worth it. And so I have in my grief group, I have these two brothers. They're very young. They're in their 20s, and their father had brain cancer, and they actually took care of him. They were his caregiver most of their young life. They never got to live. They started taking care of him when they were like 14 and 16, and they never had a youth. And then he died, and it was a terrible death. Brain cancer, glioblastoma is horrible. And so they're trying to build themselves back up again. So one of them loves this idea, and he carries these little candles with him, and he puts them places, like he had to go to some office that's right next door to the hospital where his dad died. And he puts the little candles on the steps, like right in downtown Portland. He puts it on the sidewalk.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's one little tool. There are so many. We also have like, well, let's see. I have it up on my screen. I'll give you a couple of other ones. This is all in the stuff that I'm going to send you.
And by the way, you can certainly connect to Dr. Daniels. She'll give you her website. She's got a lot of stuff going on all the time. She has a monthly newsletter. I know you have like monthly things and of events and all kinds of things that you can go there, check them out. So I'm sure some of the things you're talking about right now are on your site.
Well, there's the best place to go is go to. I'm into a whole other thing now about religious trauma and toxic theology. That's another conversation entirely. But you can go to Death, Grief, and Belief.com. Somebody put that in the chat, just www.deathgriefandbelief.com. That's the best way to find me. Or you can also go to danieldirect.net. Both of those places, you can click a subscribe link, And
And what's the second one?
DanielDirect.net. I set that website up when I was really channeling my son. His name was Danny, by the way. Here's a tool for you. So my last name is Daniel, not Daniels. There's no S, just Daniel, which was my son's name. And after he died, I had my last name legally changed to his first name. That's why my name is Terri Daniel. And so I set up that website right around that time, and it was called Daniel Direct because I had a direct conduit connection to him. And again, that was 19 years ago, and I still have that website. So it's Daniel Direct connection to Daniel.
That's great.
Okay, so here's another one. I should probably just share my screen and show you these. I suppose. Let's see. I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Hang on a second. So it's the little, which one is it? It's this one. Okay. Share screen. I do have two monitors. Okay. Share screen. Window. I believe it's this one. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
Okay. Now, which one are we looking at? Let's see. It would be the PDF. Can you see this?
Yeah, like there's a lot on there to see. To be honest with you.
All right, never mind. I'm not even going to try to do this.
I was going to say, unless somebody has a really enormous computer and they can scroll down it. But I would say.
Okay. Yeah, forget it. I'm not going to share because it's always a mess to do that. So never mind. Okay. Anyway,
you can go to the web. You can go to the website here and you can see all this.
Well,
stuff.
this is a document that I'm going to send everybody. So
Okay.
Suzanne and
Great.
Stephanie, I'll just send it to you and you can distribute it however you want.
Absolutely.
So another tool I have, I love this one. It's called Create a Heart in Heaven. So a lot of you have really traumatic images of how your loved one died. Maybe they died in a car crash. Maybe you have an image of them in the emergency room or in a hospital bed full of tubes and things like that. Or maybe they hung themselves and you found them. Really traumatic stuff.
Yeah.
It benefits nobody for you to hold that image in your consciousness.
Yes.
You are 100% allowed to let that go. So
Yes.
there's an exercise for doing that. One is first you take a piece of paper and you draw that image, whatever image it is that is keeping you awake at night and just tormenting you, that horrible, terrible image that you want to let go. And you have to really want to let go of it. But listen to me when I tell you, and listen to Suzanne when she tells you, there is no benefit in holding that image. It is allowed to go away.
Because they are not there. That was with the body. That's not them. That was with the body. If you think about it, is that when you get out of your car, you're out of your car. You still go on. The car stays there. The car is not going to go anywhere because it has no reason, because it can't go anywhere without you driving it. So the body can't go anywhere, but there's the soul is doing the thing, and that's what it's all about. And I'm glad that you mentioned. That's a question that I'm asked all the time. Are they there? Did they feel that? No, that stuff does not go with the soul. It was the body. The body's gone. That is gone. And not to mention the fact is that they don't want you to go there.
Yes.
I'm telling you something. My conversations with 40 years of dead people, I can tell you right now, they do not want you to go there because that's not where they are. Mm-hmm. And they want this connection of love between the two of you. And when you're seeing that image all the time, it's impossible to get that love thing kind of like above it all. But that's what they want, because that's what this is all about at this point. You have to develop a different kind of a relationship without a body.
That's exactly right. And that's not the image they want you to remember. They don't want you to remember the skinny little person in hospice. And I'm going to answer Brian and Jackie, who put a comment in here that mom was in hospice and she was a shell. When you're dying, you do become a shell. That's normal. That's what you're supposed to look like in hospice. Right. There's nothing wrong with that image. I watch people die in hospice every single day, and that's what they're supposed to look like. That's actually
the program.
Fine.
program.
Yeah.
And like I said, if I know it's a hard thing to make, but a car, when you get out of it, you're out. You keep walking across the street, going in your groceries, doing your thing, whatever it is. The car just sits there, has no function unless you're in it. So once the body is no longer there, has no function, its only function is when you are here on this earth plane, period. It goes whatever. The thing is, you want it to, because we don't want to stay there, especially in a body that's awful, and we don't want to be there, and we don't want these people that we love to be in there. So just saying. And what you're doing is, if you think about it as, there was always that movie. Every once in a while I get that image of like that movie Free Willy. And when I always think about Free Willy, it always gives me the image is like, I wanted him to be free. Well, when you love someone, and I get it, trust me, I get it. We want this person to stay here because we love them. We do not think we can be without them. But God help you, I'm telling you, they do not want to be. Loving somebody truly in your heart is not having to have them stay in that awful shell, because that's at that point what it is.
Well, and holding on to that image.
Tough one.
Well, we relive those last moments because it's the last time that we saw them, and because it's trauma. And so here's the thing about trauma, and please don't let me forget to describe this process that I want to describe. I don't want to skip that, but here's the thing about trauma. A person who's traumatized does not live in the present. You're either in the past or the future. And so you're in the past because that's where the thing happened. And you're in the future because you're afraid of the thing happening again. And so you're in the past. Let's use an example of, say, you found your loved one dead somewhere from suicide. So that's the thing that happened in the past. And you're stuck there. And the way PTSD works is you're skipping over the present and you're going right to the future because you're imagining something like that or that feeling happening again. So past and future. And the way that we treat trauma is we try to get you into the present. And the way we do this is really simple, is number one, get you to breathe, and to get you to breathe for 5 seconds. And so we say, count to 5, because you can tolerate anything for 5 seconds. So if you just breathe for 5 seconds, and then we have you breathe again for another 5 seconds. And what you realize is, oh my goodness, I was just in the present for 5 seconds. And that's all it takes. And what happens is it actually programs your brain to know what it feels like to be in the present for 5 seconds. And that's just brain programming. Your brain has neuroplasticity. You can actually rewire it to teach it how to be in the present. That's part of trauma processing. So in relation to this, you don't have to be stuck in that image of finding that dead person, because, again, it does not serve any purpose to hold that. Yes, you have that image. Yes, you revisit it, but you can revisit the story. You can revisit the narrative. You can revisit the feelings, but the image can go. So here's how we do it. You take a piece of paper and you draw a picture of that image. And you can just take a black marker over it and just go, rah, and draw tears and just all the stuff. And you take that. Now put that picture aside. Now you're going to draw another picture. And this is the picture you want to replace it with. And when I have people do this in groups, I say, I want you to draw a big heart, just like when you were a little kid in second grade and you made Valentines for your classmates, and you remember the red construction paper and the little white doilies. You're going to make a Valentine, and this is a heart, and this is the home that you are building for that person in the afterlife or wherever you place them. And in this heart, on this piece of paper, you're going to fill it with all the things that you want that person to have. It's like you're building a house for them. This is where they're going to live now. And in it, you can put their favorite people that they're going to be with in the afterlife, their pets. If they liked fishing, you can put the fishing pole and whatever you want them to have, whatever you know they would want that would make them happy. And that's the new image. Okay. And so you've got these two images side by side, this terrible, ugly one and this beautiful future. Here's the past. Here's the future. Now you're going to take this past image, and just like we did when we blew in the rock and threw it away, you're going to burn this one. You're going to make this go away. You're going to give this to spirit. So go take it in a fireplace or in your backyard or wherever, and you're going to burn it with a prayer of some sort of saying, I release this from my consciousness. I release this from my body, and just watch the ashes and the smoke go up to spirit and say, I do not need this anymore. And now you have the new beautiful image, which you can hang on your refrigerator. You can put it in a frame. You can constantly make new ones as you progress in your healing, as maybe you get readings and Suzanne can tell you something about who they're with, and you can make a new picture, but you're rebuilding your brain to think of them differently as you develop. And over the years, your relationship will change a lot over the years, and we can talk about that in a second too. But this is how you do hands-on healing. So you could have 1,000 readings with a medium, and that can only take you so far in your healing.
Yes.
A medium cannot heal you. A medium
It's not
can
our
tell
job.
you, and they can tell you, yes, the person exists. That's Suzanne's job, is to bring you evidence that the person is somewhere in the universe. But the healing is your job. You have to do this work. And so my job is to show you how to do it.
One of the things that I always share with people, which I always think is really important, is that there's one thing can never be taken away from you, and that's your memories. And you may want to put some of those memories in that heart, like the time we did this and we laughed our rear end off, or the time we did that and the time we did that we dressed up for Halloween and we couldn't believe the way he looked, and we couldn't believe that he dunked into the apples and won the prize. And I mean, those are yours. No one can take them from you. And you
can make several hearts. You don't have to just do one.
You can make several of
pages.
And I think why I use that in my work, which you probably do on some level, is because I now experience people. I want to say grandparents that have been, they're either not allowed to see their grandchildren for whatever reason. There's like a lot of that getting where it's like the parent doesn't want the grandparents to be around the kid. And I know that this is not connected to us, but it sort of is, because whether you like them or not, the kids are really a good thing, even if you had a bad relationship. So by you stopping that, you're stopping that connection, and you're also stopping possible memories, because there's memories from grandparents to your parents. And rather than have it be narrow in your focus, it opens up a door for your focus as to why they do or don't or everything. Because sometimes parents that aren't great parents are sometimes great grandparents. So I put that in there because it's all part of this thing that I believe that memories are so crucial, because they not only help us, because they not only help us heal, but help us know that was between us. It was like that conversation. It's like the conversation that you remember that somebody said to you. And I always think of Maya, and she always said, like, I don't remember what they said, but I always remember how they made me feel. And so those are just as important to adding to your heart and to add. No one can take away from it, and you have memory of them. You just know you have memory of them. And these to me are the little things that are actually the big things. I mean, that, it's like, it's like you don't remember the damn toys that broke. You don't remember the damn toys, but you remember what your mom did to make this happen in your life, or that your father took you on that fishing trip and showed you how to do this, and something, those is what you remember. You don't remember the toys. I'm sorry, you just don't remember the toys, but you remember what they did for you. And that goes for whomever. And that's what's really, really, I think, as important, which I get a lot, probably maybe more in my work than you do. But I do know that that's a major, major, major importance.
Yeah, very good point. Another thing I want to tell you guys, is I want you to forget everything you have ever heard about the 5 stages of grief. Just pretend you never heard it. Throw it out. The psychology community and the grief community threw it out about 20 years ago. I can give you a long list of reasons why. I'll send you a link to an article. You can read about it. But we have something now that we call the 7 bereavement themes. And this is much more useful, and we also have, there's also like tasks of grieving, things that you have to do to have a healthy grief experience. For example, the very first task of grieving is, in fact, I'm going to put it out there to you guys and what do you think is the very first task that you have to do to begin to process grief? Put it in the chat box. Anybody? What is that, Suzanne?
What does it look like?
I don't know. It looks like a wind chime.
It's a heart.
Oh, yeah. It's a heart. Beautiful. That's a really pretty one.
This was given to me when my nephew died.
Oh, that's really gorgeous.
And what is so interesting is that, is that same week, actually, when he died, when I was walking, because it was in the, it was in the fall after, because he died in the winter, but the fall after, I mean the spring after that, when the leaves and everything come out on the trees, there were forever leaves with hearts in them, just forever for leaves with hearts in them. And so this is my thing. And then when, of course, I went to Morocco, somebody hands me a heart. It's like, so that's kind of my symbol for him. But it's
pretty universal symbol.
It's pretty universal. But the fact is that, that this was given to me. And you know who gave me this? He gave this to me the last time I saw him for Christmas.
Oh,
now, what 23-year-old boy gives something like this to their aunt?
That's true. That's true.
That's true. Not too many 23-year-old boys give these kings to their aunt. But this is the last time I saw him, and he gave me this.
Yeah.
So I had to show it because we were talking about hearts. So I couldn't resist.
It's perfect.
Yes.
So yes, the first task of grieving is accept. And if you look back at the 5 stages, she has acceptance as the last thing. I mean, that's one of like 50 things that are wrong. If you have acceptance at the end, it's more like passive resignation, like, oh, okay, I guess I have to accept this. Anyway, I could go on and on. I've published papers about why the 5 stages is bad, but just trust me, don't use it. So the themes of grieving are like themes that you'll encounter, like, having to deal with familiar places, like we talked about before, and, memories that come up. Another important theme is reaching out to people for social connection. Very important.
Very important.
Yeah. And sometimes you won't do that. And you have to know when to reach out for it and when to say no when there's too much of it, and how to find that balance. Another important theme is having markers in the future. So when I'm talking to the bereaved hospice families, even if their person just died a week ago, maybe not in the first week, but I talk to them in the first week, and then again at a month, I'll say, what have you got in the future? What's coming up? What's on your calendar? And they'll say, well, I'm supposed to go camping next week, or I'm supposed to go to my cousin's wedding, and I really don't want to go. And I'm saying, you know what? Go, because it's important to have those markers so that you, again, training your brain to see that life is still going on around you, instead of seeing that other people are going to a wedding and other people are going camping and you're sitting in your house and crying. You have to go out there and be part of it. And it's really hard to do. But if you don't want to go, get somebody to go with you. Another one of those themes that's not on the list, but I would like to add to it, is learn how to accept help. Everybody's coming up to you and saying, oh, let me know if I can do anything. And you're always going to say, oh, I'm fine. That's bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Yeah. So what you do is give people jobs. And so here you are grieving. It's been a week, it's been a month, whatever, and people are trying to help and give them a job. Like the oil light has been on in your car for a week. Tell your friend to take your car and go get the oil changed for you. Because the last thing you feel like doing right now is going to the oil change place.
That's right.
Or, some dumb thing like that you don't want to do because it's just you're in terrible pain.
Yes.
A month after your child dies, 6 months after. I mean, now if it's your 90-year-old mother who died in a nursing home, you're going to be fine going to the oil change place because that's not a trauma.
Right.
You got to really understand the difference between an expected natural death and a traumatic death. So when I'm talking about a traumatic death here.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that when my closest friend, when she was dying of cancer, and I remember that because when you lose people that are close to you and obviously close friends, and she was younger, is that it's sort of like what can I do? And that was one of the things that I knew I could do because she was in and out of the hospital and she was getting all kinds of chemo and all kinds of stuff. And then that was right before she died. So what I said, well, I can't walk my path for her. I can do things for her. So we had people come to her house, take care of her cats, keep her house clean, help her when her daughter flew in from Seattle. Those are the things that you can do.
Practical things
that you can do. If people need to come over to the house that are staying out of town, you can feed them, or you can suggest people, if you got an extra bedroom, they can stay with you. Those are the things that you can do to help somebody that are really significantly important during that time.
And there's two sides to that. So if you're the grieving person, you have to have the balls to ask for those things.
Yes.
And if you're the friend, you have to be specific and offer them. Don't wait for to be asked. So it's a delicate little dance between those two things. So if you're the friend, say, I am going to pick up your friend from the airport. I'm just going to do that. Or I am going to come and, when my dog died a couple months ago and my friend Kimmy said, I'm coming over tomorrow and taking you to happy hour. And it's like, I don't want to go out. I look like shit. I don't want to go out. I just want to stay home and cry. And she's like, no, I'm coming over. I'll be there at 3. We're going to happy hour. That's how you do it.
Yeah. You don't ask. You just do it.
You don't ask.
You don't do it. This is not an asking program. This is like a doing program because you can't, first of all, asking means you got to make a decision. I mean, asking means a decision. You can't make a decision. Right. You're like, you're out of your mind. Grief. You can't make a decision, nor probably should you make a decision because it might not be the best
And
decision.
on the other side, as the grieving person, if your friend says, what can I do? What do you need? You don't know what you need. I have people tell me that all the time. I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
But your friends know what you need because they've had people die. They've been through this. They know exactly what you need. So
your friends, they know a little bit about you. I mean,
yeah.
They know what you like. They know your favorite meal. They know, if they bring you this favorite meal that you like, you're going to be, whatever. If you don't eat it, then you put it in the refrigerator, whatever. I mean, that's what you do. You just do it, as they say. You can't sit around and think about it.
Yeah. So, again, in our culture, we don't get any education about death and we don't get any education about grief. When we are children, our parents hide us away from the death of a family member when it happens. Nobody teaches us this. They teach us to be quiet in the library. They teach us to walk, look both ways when we cross the street and say please and thank you. Nobody teaches us death and grief etiquette. So here we are adults and our friend is crying, their husband just died, and we just stand there like a bump on a log and we're like, oh, duh, I don't know what to do. It's terrible. There's like no education in our culture at all.
I have a little, this is not, but for all of you people that can relate to this, which I assure you there's probably many of you people that can relate to this. I'm going to do a flashback. Anybody remember the movie Ordinary People?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Great movie.
Great movie. When I saw that movie, it was like the bells went off on me because his son just died. Donald Sutherland. His son just died, and his wife, typical to who she was, she's like saying, like, you got different socks on. And it's like,
right.
you got different socks on. And he's saying, I just lost my son, and you give a damn about what kind of socks I got on? I mean, that's where you are? It was so typical because she was always so cut off. And so, I mean, it was a perfect princess. If you remember who played that role, you remember who
Mary
played
Tyler Moore.
There,
Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, think about that, because I never forgot that line in that movie. Out of the whole movie, that was the remember the most, is that, my God, you're worried about the socks I'm wearing. I just had my heart cut open, thrown out on the streets. I'm never going to get over this, and you're worried about my socks.
Yeah.
So I want you all to think about that one, because if you got somebody who says something to you about, like, well, I kind of know, but no, you don't. No, you don't. You do not know what I'm going through, nor should you even try to know what I'm going through, unless possibly if you've lost a child. You're going to know a little better than sort of somebody else. But I've heard those stories, and I bet you have too also, Terry. Like, well, at least you knew your son was dying because he was sick. It was like he didn't just run off and get hit by a car. It's like people compare deaths of your children with other people. I've experienced that a lot in my work. I don't know about you, but I'm going to tell you something. It's just sort of like, are you kidding me? Really? Are you kidding me? So, as all I could say is that, you know, I could write books. Of course, I have written books about them. And that's one of the things that, you know, that I talk about, is that, you know, it's just that there's no greatness or easiness. There's, you know, it's like, this doesn't come with a manual, babe. Just doesn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
But you've given some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tips. So you know how to get a hold. And if you're ever out in Oregon, she does all kinds of, by the way, she does, you know, usually I do, like, I don't know, monthly lectures or every few months lectures here. But, you know, there's still a lot of things. Listen, and there are also people about it. You are right, because I know you do a lot about the religious toxic stuff. But listen, a lot of times people in that situation, it's difficult also, because I've had this with clients literally where their son committed suicide because the mother couldn't handle him being gay.
Oh, yeah.
And so the church disowned them for having a son that was gay. And then when the son died, they disowned her for having her son kill himself. I mean, like, really? Like, really? She had nowhere to go. Yes, I'll never forget that client. She lived in Iowa. And yes, he tried everything he could, but he couldn't be straight or whatever. He just couldn't.
Of course he couldn't.
No, because it's just not how he was wired.
Yeah. So I want to, I'll send you guys a bunch of stuff. You'll find out how to get in touch with me. I do have online conferences twice a year now. And I've kind of gotten, you know, because I've turned into an academic in recent years. So my focus of the conference is very different now. And we look at, you know, your religious perspectives, like how, just like what Suzanne just said, how your embedded theology that you got as a child may be affecting your grief experience. Like if you grew up, I mean, I have so many grief clients that believe in hell, and it's just destroying them, wondering if their kid is in hell because he was gay. Or, you know, I have a man right now who, because he was not a believer and his wife was, thinks that she's in heaven now that she died, and that he's not going to go to heaven, and that he's not going to be with his wife. I mean, this is just doctrinal stuff.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous, and it destroys people.
It's all based in one word, baby. It's called control.
Fear.
Well, that's control, fear. I mean, you got to put the fear to control them. I mean, the words go together.
Yeah.
The words go together. And the thing is that the bottom line, if you believe in higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it's about love. One word. That's what it's all about. Nothing complicated. It's simple. It's all about love. You didn't stop loving them because they crossed over. They didn't stop loving you because they crossed over. It's a continuum. That's something that never stops.
Yep.
That's the continuum of all of this.
That's the energy. That's all there is.
And that's it. That's it. And you want that because you don't want them to be in that space of that body anymore. And that's the truth. So this is by fast. It always does. So what we'll do is I'm going to have, because we could put this either in an addendum to my newsletter or do a blast, or we'll figure out something.
Okay, I'll email you a
yeah.
couple of PDFs and some stuff, and you guys can figure out how you want to do it.
Yeah,
because I think that your people would really like these tools.
Yeah, and people that you have, or we could put them, compile them, and whatever. So that's what this is about. This is about sharing the love, as they say.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on, Suzanne. It's always fun to do your show.
You too, honey. Take care. Be well, and happy fall, everybody.
Yay!
Coming soon,
Bye, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.